Contained but Unrestrained by Fuck Yeah Galovich. Chapter 3 Recovery. That fucking bastard. Mickey knew it was all too good to be true, that Ian would flake. And here he'd just told him that he'd had his back more than his family. Well, it was still true, but now he saw that that wasn't exactly saying much. Which made Mickey feel even more alone in the stolen Subaru by himself, driving through the something Mexican-spelled desert. He ditched the bullshit disguise about 30 miles into the country. He knew it was risky, but he couldn't bear how hot the long sleeves and wig were. And those stupid clip-on earrings were giving him a headache. Though, that may have been in part from the crying. Damn him, the tears started almost immediately after crossing the border. His heart had shattered in his chest as he drove past the security check, eyes locked on the blur of the redhead in the rear view as Mickey drove on. He didn't tear his eyes away until Ian had completely disappeared from sight in the mirror. He'd cried for an embarrassing number of miles before finally snapping out of it, veering off the road and changing his clothes in a big ditch. That was yesterday. Today, he was deep into the country. He couldn't tell at this point which coast he was closest to. He did finally have to stop for gas, though. He parked at a pump, grabbed a spare shirt, and slid into the bathroom out back. He hadn't showered in 3 days, and even if he was once the dirtiest white boy in America, this kind of dirty was as much emotional as physical. The sting of rejection lingered on his skin, the sweat from the southern desert heat trapping it, making it so that even if he wanted to shake Ian off, he couldn't. He was under his skin. What the fuck could he do? Stripping off his used t-shirt, Mickey wet the material to wash off the stickiness from his face and chest. The cool water soothed the slight sunburn already reddening the sides of his forearms from where they had remained locked in place at 10 and 2 for the past several hours as he fought the urge to punch the windshield in. And the desire to punch the windshield in was only a cover for wanting to avoid breaking down in another fit of tears. He needed at least one breakdown to let it all out, but he couldn't do it here. He would need to be 100% alone when he let it go. He rubbed his eyes roughly with the tips of his fingers, so hard that red exploded in his vision like a kaleidoscope. The mirror was so dingy in the gas station bathroom that he couldn't really see his appearance anyway, so he didn't bother making himself presentable. He pulled on the fresh t-shirt once he was dry and wrung out the dirty, wet one. Drawing out 2 20s from Ian's stack he buried in the front pocket of his jeans, he exited the bathroom to buy his gas and get the fuck on. The guy spoke barely any English, and Mickey's Spanish was escaping him with everything going on, but he still managed to slowly remember enough to get the guy to understand he hadn't exchanged for pesos yet, and would he please accept the dollars. The guy looked hesitant, probably being ripped off a time or two, and so wary of accepting USD currency from a stranger speaking broken Spanish. Mickey didn't push, though, just waited for the guy to accept. $40 wouldn't even fill up the tank. Motherfucker. At this rate, Mickey was going to have to find a comfortable spot and ditch the car, because this fucker was going to drain all of the money he had at this rate. Which he probably needed to do it anyway, because it was no doubt reported stolen by now, and it's kind of a miracle he passed through the border without being flagged by that alone. Exiting the store, Mickey immediately noticed 2 things simultaneously. 2 '80s muscle cars parked off to the right of the pumps, and a sloppy exchange of what looked like coke and a small roll of what looked like Mexican money. Mickey scoffed through his nose as the dealer dropped the baggie and scrambled for the cash as the other guy dove for the drugs. The dealer's second watched Mickey warily from the driver's seat as he popped open the door to the gas tank to fill up. The guys in the deal were scrambling all over each other, trying to ensure the one didn't screw over the other. Mickey set the lock on the pump and leaned against the rear driver's side door, watching the amateur shit show of a drug deal, trying not to laugh. The second stepped out of the car and stared intently at Mickey. He didn't back down, but was definitely glad he didn't laugh. "Hey!" the guy called. Mickey didn't flinch. The fumbling idiots finally gathered their respective items in the transaction. Druggy took off, but wannabe dealer stood still and glared. "Hey!" Mickey shouted back, withdrawing an eye roll that naturally wanted to pass. "What you looking at, gringo?" the guy called in Spanish, his hand sneaking to the back of his jeans, likely for a gun. "A real shit show of a deal, what of it?" Mickey called back in English. His vocabulary was too limited right now to say it confidently in Spanish, and saying it in English limited what any eavesdroppers would be likely to understand. Not that there was anyone around to eavesdrop. The guy pulled his gun, and though Mickey didn't visibly flinch, he was prepared to duck into the car for his own weapon if he needed to. Note to self: gun on person at all times. "Relax," Mickey called out in Spanish. "I'm no snitch." That much he could say in Spanish. Damon had taught him mostly smack talk, and he picked up some other things. He likely fucked up the grammar, but the guy got it. Both guys got into the car as smoothly as they could, but Mickey could see the wannabe, the trainee, Mickey had finally guessed, vibrating with anxiety. The second, the trainer, evidently, however, was genuinely cool as he trapped the gun on the dash where it was within easy reach, but far enough away that Mickey knew he was out of danger. The guy barely waited long enough for his trainee to close the door before driving away with a screech of tires. After that, I just kept moving south. Nothing really exciting happened. I just used the money you gave me as little as possible, lifting what I could. How long before you started working for a cartel? That took a few months. A few months. So you worked with them for almost a year? Mickey nodded suddenly, deciding he had shared enough by now. I guess I can fill in what I was doing during that time, Ian suggested after a long silence, picking up that Mickey was done for now. Mickey shrugged in acceptance. Okay, well, like I said, right after I got home, I found out Monica died, and not long after that, I learned that she left meth behind for us as inheritance. Mickey's brows shot up. Ian started laughing at how ridiculous it was. "I swear to God, I can't make this shit up." "She wanted to turn you into a family of face scratchers?" Mickey scoffed in disgust. He had never met the bitch, but between all the nights Ian had cried to him about her neglect, and the fact that apparently his visit with her had convinced him that it was time to break up with Mickey, he had developed a really ugly image of her. Ian laughed again and rolled his eyes. "Pretty sure she wanted us to sell it, and that's what we did." Mickey furrowed his brow. Mickey had always been uncomfortable with having Ian around drugs. It's why Iggy continued Terry's drug and gun dealing business alone, and Mickey went to scams. Knowing that Ian went to selling drugs just after he said he had his life together. "This isn't me anymore," Mickey grimaced. In my defense, I had intended on keeping with the straight and narrow. When I got home, they'd nearly killed each other over what to do with the meth. And since I'd given you my savings, I thought this would be a quick way to get it back and keep going. Mickey didn't look comforted, because the hidden meaning was that Ian wanted to proceed as though nothing had ever happened, as though that week and a half together had never happened. Ian had prepared to forget him. He wasn't going to call him on it, but it hurt. Ian pressed on to avoid that look of judgment. "For the first couple of months, I worked, and, well, I didn't want to be alone, so I tried to get back together with my ex." Mickey averted his eyes, cheeks slightly flushed. He didn't want to hear this part. "I'll spare you," Ian whispered, clearly uncomfortable with this part of the story. "I thought you needed to know that part." "Know what? That you went from my ass to his, to mine, then back to his?" Ian winced, and at that look, Mickey decided, fuck it, he would call him out on that hidden meaning. Know that you were going to go back to your little comfy life without me, forget about me, pretend that nothing happened, just forget everything, and move on like nothing ever fucking happened? Ian winced again, and bit his lip as he dropped his head in obvious shame. Good. I just didn't want you to think I was hiding anything, holding anything back, Ian finally mumbled. Mickey rolled his eyes resentfully, but didn't fight the logic. It work? No. We hooked up a couple of times, but he wasn't right. Mickey still didn't look comforted. Other than that, I just worked. Although we did have a run-in with Monica's dealer when he tried to take the meth back. Mickey's eyes exploded on his face. Ian gave him a wry look in return. Yeah. Almost drowned Carl in the hot tub he got with the money. Ended up letting the guy have the hot tub, and I basically had to give him all of my money. Basically. Well, I spent a little of it. Mickey arched a brow, clearly wondering why he was being so hesitant. You're probably not going to like Monica's tribute tattoo. Okay, uh, rewind. Start from the beginning of that story. Mickey leaned in with curiosity, but he was anything but amused or intrigued. Carl sold my share of the meth last, and so when the dealer found us, I lost pretty much all of it because I didn't have much time to spend it. Turns out that Monica stole the meth from an old boyfriend or something, or gave Frank the information to help him steal it. Ian considered it for a moment before shaking his head, deciding it didn't matter, apparently. I don't know. Either way, Carl knew where her old hideaway was, and he took me there so I could take anything of hers that I wanted. When we were looking through her stuff, the dealer happened to be there, and I guess he figured out we were Monica's kids. He damn near killed Carl, like I said, so we gave him most of the stuff and all the leftover money to get him off our asses. Mickey closed his eyes and breathed deeply through his nose. He was trying to be patient. He really was. So, I think that covers the time you gave me, Ian mumbled awkwardly. Mickey breathed in slowly and opened his eyes on the exhale. You know what I want to say, Mickey said through clenched teeth. Ian nodded. He backed his head against the wall again and stared at the sheet of metal separating their bunks, willing patience to simmer his temper down. I guess I should warn you about that tattoo. Ian's grimace was still firmly in place when Mickey returned his glance to him. You said I'd not like it, Mickey replied simply. It's crazy bad, honestly, Ian replied quickly, almost like he was already begging for forgiveness. Mickey furrowed his brow in confusion. I had wanted to get a tribute tattoo to Monica, and he groaned and started unbuttoning his uniform. That bad? Christ. Ian turned around, lifting his shirt to reveal. Mickey's disgusted grimace was as audible as visual once he saw the pair of perky tits inked on his lover's shoulder blade. The shoulder he just last night gripped in the heat of passion. Now Mickey wanted to wash his hands. He'd probably groped her as he'd groped Ian. Ugh, what in the actual fuck is that? Mickey finally exclaimed. Ian sighed and turned around sheepishly, lowering his shirt. Shame colored his cheeks pink. Yeah, when I told him it was for a woman, and I didn't know what I wanted, I told him he could surprise me. Mickey pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration, laying back on his bunk so he didn't have to look at him anymore. Well, mission accomplished, dumbass, Mickey grumbled out before he could stop himself. He felt Ian shift back and lean against the wall again, likely looking beautifully exasperated. After a long, awkward silence, Mickey finally had to say something else. Who gets a tattoo without a fucking drawing or plan? And who thinks any woman wants a guy in their life to have tits inked anywhere on them? Ian laughed without humor. Yeah, I figured he'd do a flower or butterfly or something. Mickey rolled his eyes. Ian laid his hand on the top of Mickey's left shoe, and Mickey shifted so he could see Ian over his knees. They looked at each other intently. and Ian's face relaxed when the venom faded from Mickey's face. He sank back into the mattress and folded his arms behind his head. Well, I guess either of those would work for a cover-up now. When we're out, we'll both get our cover-ups. Call it a date or some shit. It's not dinner with utensils, but... Ian's smile was so broad, so luminous that Mickey didn't even have to look at him to know he was grinning ear to ear. We, the dorky redhead prompted teasingly. He leaned over a bit to get within Mickey's field of vision. Mickey waited a while to speak, not wanting to give him the wrong impression that they were completely cool, but not wanting him to think they were necessarily on thin ice either. I said we got shit to work out. Not that I didn't think we could do it. Just, if you talk to me about the future, you better fucking mean it. Don't just blow smoke up my ass while you're here and then ghost. I definitely couldn't take that. The again was implied. Ian was apparently so excited by that fucking we that he was damn buoyant. I want to do a lot of things to your ass. That's not one of them. Ian smirked. Mickey rubbed his eyes with both hands to cover the immediate smile. Damn him. Ian's mood was always so infectious when he was playful like this. He was simultaneously mad at himself for lowering his guard so easily, and relieved to joke with him like this. Not before we track down some kind of lube, Mickey grumbled in return, trying, and failing, to hide his own playful smile. Ian groaned and stretched out beside Mickey, making Mickey shift over the edge so they didn't look like they were cuddling. They needed to look like they were buds shooting the shit, talking, which this position would look weird enough, but it might be survivable if someone quirked a brow at it. How the fuck are we gonna get that in here? Ian groaned. Mickey shrugged easily. If people can get phones in here, I'm sure we can get a small tube at a time. Ian nodded as though saying, That's true. Could probably get Debs to throw some over the fence in the yard, honestly. Ian said, completely seriously. Mickey, however, laughed. Debbie'd take the time out of her day to help you get off in prison. Mickey couldn't help but laugh at the image. Ian nodded again, completely serious. Well, fuck, guess it's worth a try. Better than getting any of the guys in here involved. Ian looked comforted, relieved. Ian shifted so he was laying on his side. Mickey didn't move, only for appearances, should anyone walk by, though it seemed like everyone was downstairs for now. I missed you, Mick. I know I fucked up, but I really did think about you and wished I'd gone with you. Mickey shut down. He wasn't ready to hear this. Well, after all that bullshit waiting for you when you got back, I guess anyone would prefer laying low in Mexican alleyways. Mickey snarked. Ian sighed and laid back again, defeated. Mickey felt a pang of guilt in his chest at his reaction, so, with a sigh, he turned to face him, grabbing Ian's attention so he didn't miss the sincerity in his face. I missed you too, Mickey murmured shyly, but sincerely. A shy smile spread on Ian's face that made him look so young, Mickey could almost see the first time Ian visited him in juvie flash behind his eyes. It put a matching smile on Mickey's face. Approaching boot falls alerted both men to a guard's approach, so they scrambled up and away from each other. The guard didn't enter the cube, but stood at their open doorway with a clipboard. Commissary orders, the guard announced. Mickey sat back, but Ian leapt up and took the proffered clipboard and pen. The redhead didn't even pause as he started filling out the form. He reviewed it, then handed it back to the officer, who also reviewed it. Big spender, huh? Ian didn't respond. The guard's smug smirk faded, and he turned away, calling out, Yard and 30, inmates. Ian turned from him and smoothly sat back down in his spot. Mickey arched a brow in question. We won't have to choose between playing chicken with our gag reflexes or starving now, Ian replied easily. Mickey felt a pang of guilt. I can't pick up the tab next time. I didn't have anything when I turned myself in. Ian almost looked insulted. So, of got plenty. Who's going to refill your commissary if you blow it all in the first week? I didn't blow it all in the first week. Ian rolled his eyes as he continued. But I figured Lip would. Mickey felt his lip twist to match the disbelief swirling inside him. What? You so sure they're going to fill your commissary when they weren't even going to visit Fiona when she was in trouble? Ian furrowed his brow. It's my money, not theirs. And it takes 5 minutes every few weeks, Ian argued slowly, irritating Mickey that Ian was handling him like he would speak to Yev at this point. I'm just saying, wait to see if they even visit you before getting your hopes up that they'll spend their precious time filling your commissary. Ian gave him a resentful look, but didn't fight him either. Did that mean that he saw Mickey's point, or was he just wanting to avoid an argument? Probably the latter. A buzzer went off, alerting the inmates to yard time, and wordlessly, both boys exited their room. The yard was basically the same as the one he was in at the other block. Hell, it was probably the exact same one, and they just moved some of the equipment around. Ian's brain was swirling with indecipherable emotions as he followed Mickey to the weights. Neither of them were big sports guys, so he figured this was where they would spend most of their yard time. Unless he could convince Debbie to try slipping some lube in between the cracks of the fence, that is. Then they would need to start walking the track, so it wouldn't tip the guards off that they were suddenly by the fence. Ian laughed to himself as he realized how fucked his priorities were, but God, he'd missed Mickey. And going at it raw was stupid enough without taking into account a lack of proper lubrication. Mickey was absolutely right. They shouldn't do it that way again, and Ian be damned before he used lotion on him. Mickey prepped the bar with 2 25-pound weights on either side and grinned at Ian. Ian returned the smile, and they each fell into position, Mickey laying on the bench, Ian standing at the head to spot. Watching Mickey bench was honestly one of the hottest things he'd seen in a while. He couldn't help his eyes roving over the flex of Mickey's biceps as he spread his arms to lower the bar over his chest, and the strain of that muscle as he pressed the bar into the air. Had Mickey rolled the top part of his uniform down, he'd be able to see his pectorals flexing as well, and he was momentarily disappointed that he couldn't see that. But then he remembered Mickey's Ian Gallagher tattoo and realized it would probably be unwise to have his shirt off in Gen Pop more than necessary. 8 reps later, and Mickey's face was starting to pink with exertion, a light sheen of sweat beading at his hairline from the workout and the heat. 2 more, Mick. You got 2 more, Ian coached. Mickey huffed out a breath as he punched the bar into the air for the 9th rep. 1 more, 1 more, Ian cheered with exaggerated enthusiasm, so Mickey knew he was being silly. Mickey punched out a laugh that sounded suspiciously like, "Dick." Ian laughed and helped Mickey guide the bar into the cradle. Mickey sat up, and Ian came back around to talk to him. "Remember lifting with those bullshit weights you found?" Ian asked, feeling the smile tug up at his mouth. Called them pussy weights because they were barely bigger than what yuppie white chicks speed walk with through the park. Mickey laughed back. Then you called the better ones real weights, Ian added. Yeah, still not exactly 140 pounds, but they worked, Mickey shrugged. Remember when I was completely convinced we'd move out of Southside to find a place big enough to have a weight room? Ian was nervous to bring up this memory because he was manic at the time, but it was one of the lighter parts of his mania, so he liked it. Mickey nodded, not looking at him for a moment. When he did turn his attention to Ian, he looked happy at the memory. Ian could still see the house he would have bet his soul that they would have. White walls and curtains, a comfortable sofa, Mickey and baby Yevie with him. That they didn't have to have 3 armories and safes to conceal drugs. The knowledge that Yevie had a playroom with copious amounts of toys and arts and crafts materials. Ian and Mickey had their own room, and aforementioned weight room. Svetlana had her own room, adjacent to Yevie's, so she could have some private time with whoever was in her life. Even though he figured Yevie and Svetlana were permanently out of the picture, Ian still wanted this image. So fucking badly. He wanted that image to come to life. Yeah, Mickey finally murmured reverently. No one could convince you that you weren't getting that house. Mickey stood up to let Ian lay back. 140 good? He asked. Ian nodded as he gripped the bar. Mickey covered his hands with his in a soft gesture to let him know that he was there to spot. The touch was so gentle, but was entirely too brief. Ian almost groaned at the flighting intimacy. "I guess we'll never get that house now, huh?" Ian grunted after the second rep. He couldn't see Mickey's face, and he didn't reply. Ian decided to drop it, though. Knowing Mickey, he'd mention it later tonight after he'd thought through his answer for a long time. Just to show off, Ian did 2 extra reps. That was what they had always done. Friendly competition. It was the friendship part of their relationship. It was this sort of companionship Ian had always searched for in his other relationships but never found. The sex was fine with Caleb and Trevor, but they got offended too easily, got scared too easily. Mickey loved a challenge and could laugh off literally any joke Ian tossed his way, and know that they were as in love in that moment as before. He could call him an asswipe, and Mickey would take it like a compliment, and they could shove each other and know that it was playful. It was that kind of dynamic that made the most gentle of moments between them even more impactful, and was what made what others would call the lulls just as exciting as when they had to run from cops or homophobic assholes. Mickey was Ian's best friend, and it really sucked that it took this, lifting weights in prison after 3 years of separation, to figure it out. He wanted to say something, but knew this was so not the place. "Fucking tough guy trying to one-up me, huh?" Mickey grumbled as they switched spots, not even bothering to share a memory this time. Ian grinned his cocky grin. "Technically, I believe I two-upped you." Mickey glared, and to anyone else it would look like he was trying to figure out how to wrap his intestines around a fork like a bowl of spaghetti. But Ian saw the affectionate glow in that glare, the glow that said, "Okay, I see what you did there, asshole, and I'm not laughing, but I love that you called that shit out." Ian's grin spread wider, and he took his position at the head of the bench so Mickey could set to his reps. He easily surpassed Ian's record, and they set to trying to beat each other until another buzzer went off to announce that they had to go in. In the end, they basically tied. "We'll put on more weight tomorrow," Mickey grumbled irritably. Ian laughed and shrugged amicably, letting Mickey be grumpy, because that was just his natural state, and Ian thought it was adorable as hell. As the inmates filed into the common area, someone's hand snatched at Mickey's shoulder, and he whirled around, grabbing Ian's attention, and he too rounded on the guy. "Hey, Milkovich! I thought that was you," the guy said excitedly. Mickey seemed to recognize the guy, but he didn't return the enthusiasm, which told Ian that there was history. Not beef, but history. "Yeah, I'm back," Mickey said simply, barely even bothering to enunciate to show how little he really cared to talk to the guy. "Freedom wasn't good enough for you?" the guy asked. It sounded innocent enough, but there was a sharp undercurrent, a severity that was almost sinister. "Got collared in Mexico," Mickey replied simply, turning back around. That sucks," the guy called so Mickey could hear. "Paolo got the good shit when you're ready then." "Ain't doing that shit no more," Mickey replied firmly. The guy's eyebrows shot up for a look almost worthy of Mickey Milkovich himself. You can't just turn your back," the guy stammered. "Dealing with the hard shit hasn't exactly led me anywhere I want to be, now has it?" Mickey explained slowly. The guy looked speechless. I guess Paolo will understand." Mickey whirled on the guy again and waited for the direct vicinity to clear. "Well, I don't owe him shit, and I know a bunch of trade secrets, so it don't look like he's got much of a choice," Mickey murmured under his breath. The guy nodded slowly, and after a long silence, walked away without another word. Ian exhaled a hard breath that he didn't realize he'd been holding in, and gulped down new air quickly. "Fuck, Mick, what was that?" Ian demanded in a harsh whisper. "Old business partner," Mickey replied as quietly but easily. "Sounds like there's some ends that weren't tied," Ian whispered anxiously. Mickey rolled his eyes, conveying how little concern he felt on the matter. "I already got targets on my back. What's one more, right?" Ian's eyes popped out of his head. That's not funny.
Wasn't a joke.
Ian was truly speechless for a long moment until he started rambling nonsense. The most coherent was something like, "So you've already got enemies in here, but you're going to go pissing one off? Mick, you know how this shit works." "Well, I stopped seeing Svetlana shortly after someone stopped seeing me, and so I lost my money. Bitch stopped filling my commissary, and I needed to provide for myself somehow." "Don't you dare try to pin this on me, Mickey," Ian whispered furiously. Mickey's eyes damn near popped out of his head. "I'm not pinning anything on anyone. You did that on your own." Anyway, I wasn't trying to be a dick. I was explaining how he and I got involved. But it's over. I'm not doing that shit in here. Not when there's a shot to get it right outside. Ian still wanted to rage because, damn him, he could argue he hadn't turned anything around on him all day long. But he still did. And yet, he was putting himself in a lot of danger to shoot for a chance at a normal life with him outside. And Ian was grateful. That lighter emotion only slightly dampened his panic at knowing Mickey was in danger. And Mickey's cool wasn't exactly reassuring him.
End of chapter 3. So this author's note is years later after I originally uploaded this chapter, but I'm getting back into it during the summer, and I'm really excited with how much interaction this story has maintained over the years, which it's scary enough to say that it's been years that I've been working on this project with it being incomplete. But I just want to express another thank you to everyone who is still here or is just now joining into the fun. And I want to reiterate from the addendum to my chapter 2 author's note that I'm really hoping to work more diligently on this project and finish it over the summer. So let's try to get there. I'm going to try.